This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, other holders. Jeff Canadado welcoming you to another sports catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, January the 5th. Now, I did a couple of birthday boys for January the 5th in the past. But in the past 3 years, I've dealt with Alex English, Eddie Jones, and Tracy Ham. I couldn't find a legend on January the 5th that was alive, so I had to go with someone who's dead. But this guy is a legend, was a legend, I should say, in NFL coaching, one of the greatest of all time. He actually held his head coach's job for 23 years. Can you imagine a guy, except for Belichick, holding him for 20 years even? He even played in the NFL and then took the helm of the moribund Steelers, who were terrible, and turned them into a perennial contender. He was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1993, and in fact, he had careers. He gave African Americans opportunities to play for Pittsburgh, starting the first black quarterback in franchise history and one of the first black assistant coaches in league history. He brought the morale of Western Pennsylvania upwards, even though the region has steep economic decline because of the steel agency. But anyway, his name was Chuck Noll. So he was born January 5th, 1932 in Cleveland, the youngest of 3 siblings. So, anyway, Noll would actually be close to a large African American population in a neighborhood. He attended high school and began working in 7th grade and then went to Benedictine High School with the tuition. He would make 55 cents an hour at a meat market after work, but education was included. He did quite well. On the high school football team, he was running back and tackle, winning all-state honors. Noll planned to attend Notre Dame because that's where all the good Catholics go, to Notre Dame. Unfortunately, he suffered an epileptic seizure on the field before his freshman year, and Frank Leahy, the coach, refused to take the risk of allowing Noll to play there. So Noll actually ended up going to the University of Dayton to play football, and graduated with a degree in secondary education. As a member of Dayton, he was lineman and co-captain. He had a grasp of the game. Cleveland, in the 20th round of the 1953 NFL Draft, decided to take a flyer on their hometown boy and draft him. Noll would have 8 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, and a pair of defensive touchdowns in his career that spanned between 1953 and 1959. So he went 7 years with them, winning 2 NFL titles with the Browns. So anyway, Noll was drafted as a linebacker, but because he was undersized, Paul Brown said that he could send play calls to the quarterback easily. So anyway, he was given only $5,000, and then he became a substitute teacher and sold insurance on the side. So anyway, at 27, he retired after losing his guard position. And he was actually given a chance to coach with Sid Gilman on the staff of the Chargers in the AFL. So Noll was an assistant from 1960 to 65 with the Chargers, and then became Don Shula's assistant with the Colts from 65 to 68. And then that's when Pittsburgh noticed him and decided to take a flyer on him. So anyway, Chuck Noll liked Sid Gilman and all that. He was the defensive line coach, the defensive backfield coach, and the defensive coordinator, having the Chargers get to 5 AFL championship games and all that. He looked pretty good. Funny thing was that Al Davis, before he was the Raiders owner, was an assistant and scout. Anyway, with the Colts, he was defensive backfield coach and defensive coordinator too, and would shift the linemen in rotating zone and blitz packages. In his final season as defensive coordinator of the Colts, they were 13-1 with giving up 144 points, or practically 10 points per game, which was actually quite enormous and all that. Don Shula said he knew it. He explained how to do things and put up the technique, and had great detail. He was like a classroom teacher. Of course, those Baltimore Colts would get shocked in Super Bowl III by the Jets 16-7. And then Noll would interview for the head coach position in Pittsburgh. And 12 days after losing the famous Super Bowl III, he was named the head coach of the Steelers in 1969. Joe Paterno looked like he was going to be the guy, but Joe Pa turned it down. He wanted to stay in college. So Noll, at 37, was the youngest head coach in the NFL. And Don Shula actually recommended Noll be the head coach, which is shocking, but Shula was just a decent person. Noll would implement a defensive system in Pittsburgh that helped the Steel Curtain defense. And Noll became the first head coach to win 4 Super Bowls. Super Bowl 9, 10, 13, and 14. Or in layman's terms, 75, 76, 80, 79, and 80. Noll's coaching success was how the Steelers could select players in the draft. Joe Green was the first round pick that Noll was around. The man from North Texas State, who would be a perennial All-Pro and anchored the defensive line. And then Pittsburgh would draft Terry Bradshaw and Franco Harris as first-round picks. Bradshaw from Tech, Franco from Penn State. Now, even though that Noll's first season ended sour with Pittsburgh with only 1 win, it didn't faze the coach and all that. It didn't faze Pittsburgh and Art Rooney. Heck, I mean, Tom Landry, in his first season as head coach, didn't win any games for the Cowboys. So, you know that. So anyway, the 74 draft would be one of the biggest drafts in Pittsburgh history, as they selected 4 future Hall of Famers with their first 5 picks. Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Jack Lambert, and Mike Webster. To this day, no other draft by any team has included more than 2 future Hall of Famers. Noll was meticulous. He would dwell on the fundamentals such as the 3-point stance and all that. Fortunately, though, people knew what he was doing. He valued education and all that. Anyway, he would enforce strict curfew on his players. Well, he was actually lax and all that. At Super Bowl 9, when they were in New Orleans, he told the players to go on Bourbon Street and get the partying out of your system now, which they did, and it helped them win Super Bowl 9. Of course, the Steel Curtain with L.C. Greenwood, Joe Green, Ernie Holmes, Dwight White, Jack Ham, and Jack Lambert looked pretty impressive. They went with a run-oriented offense at times with Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier running all over people. And Terry Bradshaw was an outstanding passer. And then after Franco and Rocky slowed down, they decided to go with a more passing offense with Swann and Stallworth. Anyway, the Steelers would start to fumble by the 1980s. I mean, you can only be so good for so long. Anyway, they tried their best and all that, but injuries and departures of their Super Bowl winning players to retirement and such made them skid. He was actually named head coach of the Steelers, getting them into the second round of the playoffs, despite the fact that they actually were outscored 92-10 in the first 2 games of the regular season. It was just focus. Noll decided by 1991 that he was done. So unlike Tom Landry, who was fired by the new owners of the Cowboys, Noll went out on his terms with 209 wins, including postseason games. The Pro Football Hall of Fame decided to give him a chance to be there 2 years later. He maintained a residence in Pittsburgh, and he liked the stationary bike that the Steelers gave him. He was the ceremonial title of administrative advisor in the front office. So Noll would actually die of natural causes in his condo June 2014 after suffering for several years from Alzheimer's, heart conditions, and back problems. It was a legacy that Chuck Noll, at age 82, passed away. But anyway, there was a lot of legacy and all that. He provided opportunities for African Americans. Joe Gilliam was actually the NFL's first African American starting quarterback. That was in 1974. Franco Harris became the first African American to win the Super Bowl MVP award in 1975. He helped Tony Dungy out because Dungy, who played for Noll in the 1970s for the Steelers, got his start as an NFL assistant coach and became the first African American coordinator in the NFL. And Noll promoted Dungy as a well-qualified head coaching candidate. Dungy could have been the Steelers head coach after Noll left, but it didn't work out. However, he did go to Tampa and Indianapolis and did win the Super Bowl with the Colts, Super Bowl 41. There's a field in Latrobe, Pennsylvania named after him and all of that at St. Vincent College, which is actually the place where the Steelers had summer camp. Chuck Noll has a street named after him in Pittsburgh. His coaching record, 193 wins in the regular season, 16-8 in the postseason. That's .667 winning percentage, aka you win 2 out of every 3 games. 4 Super Bowl championships, and 3 losses in the AFC title game. His assistants were like Bud Carson, who became coach for Cleveland for a few years. Rod Rust, who was coach of the Pats in 1990 when they were 1-15, and also with the Alouettes in 2001. Tony Dungy, Tampa and Indy coach, and John Fox even, with Carolina, Denver, and Chicago. But the one major thing you got to know about Chuck Noll is that he started a great tradition of Pittsburgh head coaches after 1969. In the 54 plus years since Noll was hired, Pittsburgh has had not 1, not 2, but only 3 head coaches. Only 3 in history. Now even the Pats, even though Belichick's been around for a while, have had that few. They've had more than 3. I think like 8 or 9. But anyhow, Noll started from 69 to 91, and then he passed it off to Bill Cowher, who had the torch from 92 to 06. Retired after the Super Bowl victory, and then gave it to Mike Tomlin, who's been around since 2007. So you can kind of guess that Pittsburgh just has a great head coaching record, and patience is a virtue that the Rooney family has had for many years, and that's why Pittsburgh's one of the best around. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.